Hey guys, we're back for the episode 3 serious Q&A. It's a big ice and fire day today. George R. R. Martin released a new The Winds of Winter chapter. It's another Ariana chapter, so go check that out. Interestingly, last year George R. R. Martin released the Elaine chapter right before the Sansa story was cut from the show. We now see the Dornish story getting cut, and lo and behold, another Dornish chapter. Also, Season 6 Watch Episode 3 is back up, so definitely check out the adventures of Chad, Brandon, and Sweet Robin. And now on to the Q&A. On what we've seen so far, do you think Jon is really Jon? If not, who could be animating his body? I think there's no way that this is Jon. Now granted, most of my reasoning is book-related, but when Lady Stoneheart came back, she was nothing like Catelyn. This Jon is definitely different. He killed Ollie. I don't think the real Jon would have done that. Additionally, in the book, there is afterlife. Souls come out of bodies and get absorbed into other things. But the biggest clue that this isn't Jon is that Ghost doesn't want to be near him. Ghost and Jon are connected, and yet after Jon's resurrection, we don't see Ghost ever approaching Jon. The real Jon is inside Ghost. So who's animating Jon? I suspect the Children of the Forest. But the White Walkers are also suspects. What's up with Sam and Gilly? Why are they important to the story? What happens to her child? In the book, the Sam plot has so much potential for awesomeness that I can barely contain myself talking about it. It is the plotline I am most looking forward to in The Winds of Winter. Maester conspiracies, the Faceless Men, the Tyrells, Euron, the Dornish, the Brave Companions, and the Hightowers, all friggin' converging at once with a glass candle and black and white ravens in the middle. Here in the show, I suspect the glass candle will stay, and I hope we'll meet the fourth sand snake, Sarella. Keep in mind that with a glass candle, Sam or Sarella are potentially another Bran or Bloodraven, with the ability to enter dreams and see across the world. Sam will also have access to the Raven Network. His ability to shape and control the world is simply enormous. Like Bran, he has the potential to not just be a pawn like every other character, but a player. A true player. As for Gilly and her child, a really fun theory is that they're going to end up in Slaver's Bay. In the book, Sam leaves them on the ship when he arrives in Oldtown, and then a character named Archmaester Marwyn takes that ship to Slaver's Bay. We don't know if Gilly was still on board. What's really fun about the idea is that Gilly actually heard Mormont's last words that Jorah should join the Watch. So Gilly could possibly give Jorah this message. When Bran calls for his father Ned, why does Bloodraven seem so uncomfortable at that moment? Do you think the three-eyed raven has an ulterior motive? I know he seems like he wants to show Bran all these important events, but I keep wondering why. These are really good questions. Let's keep in mind that Bloodraven has told Bran that a war is coming. So right now, Bran must assume that it has something to do with those whites that attacked him. And we know from the previews that Bran is later shown the White Walkers themselves. All signs point to Bloodraven telling Bran that the White Walkers are the enemy. So, if that's the case, what does R+L have to do with any of that? Now, prophecy lover traditionalists would like to say that the child of Rhaegar and Lyanna is going to somehow stop the White Walkers and fulfill prophecy in the foretold Battle of the Dawn. Okay. Then why deprive Bran of any knowledge of that? Why not show him the R+L birth? If prophecy is true, he should be telling Bran all of this stuff. He should be getting him pumped up that a savior is born and in the world. And that is generally the problem with traditionalists that think this is Harry Potter. Clearly, in both book and show, Bloodraven is hiding the truth from Bran and not telling him the whole story. He is lying and manipulating Bran in some manner and for some reason. Now, I think the Children of the Forest are trying to get humanity to kill itself. R+L, no matter who the child is, implies that Targaryens and Starks are kin, and the Tower of Joy may show that Rhaegar wasn't a rapist. Right now, Bran assumes Targaryens are enemies and Rhaegar was a bad guy, and it appears that Bloodraven wants to keep Bran in that mindset. Do you think the show is leading up to R+L=J for them to end up doing R+L=D? To shock the fans, get one over on book readers, knowing that a majority think it's Jon, not Dany? I'm not sure if the show really knows what it's doing. The show is definitely hinting at R+L=J, but I personally don't think the R+L reveal will come this season. It seems like something that they will put off and allow George R. R. Martin to do in the books. This means the show will either have foreshadowing or a misdirect. That said, R+L=D would be a fucking fantastic reveal. All of that build-up for R+L=J only to have Ned walk into that tower and see a silver-haired baby? Another great episode 10 ending would be that silver-haired baby, and then a surprise Aegon invasion. But that's the fanboy in me. Hey Preston, do you think the book and the show could go down different Jon parentage routes? Oh, I think that's definitely possible. I find it very weird that the show has spent so little time on Brandon Stark and Ashara Dane. Maybe they're about to start on that with the introduction of Arthur Dane? I don't know. It's pretty clear in the book that Brandon and Ashara each have very important roles in the story. I'm not sure how or why the show decided to cut them. Do you think that the Tower of Joy scene proved that Ned isn't as honorable as everyone made him out to be? Well, I think that anyone that thinks Ned is 100% honorable kind of missed the point of A Game of Thrones. Throughout the story, he's riddled with guilt, and he's clearly shown doing dishonorable things like altering Robert's letter. No one is 100% honorable. That would be boring. I think this scene is actually pretty brilliant. If you remember, Jaime doesn't kill Ned because Ned gets injured. He shows himself more honorable in battle, and part of Jaime's shame is that he stabbed someone in the back, something that Ned's very good friend did for him. The fact that Ned hates Jaime because Jaime reminds him of himself is pretty brilliant. Do you think Bran will intentionally or accidentally change the past so that the events that have happened so far in A Game of Thrones will never happen? Okay, here's the biggie. Let's talk about George R. R. Martin and time travel. Our author has written exactly 3 stories on time travel, and they are somewhat similar. The first he wrote is called For a Single Yesterday, written in 1975. It's about a group of post-apocalyptic survivors who are trying to rebuild society. They have this drug that allows them to go back deep inside their memories to try to gain knowledge that will help them advance. For example, if you ever watched a doctor do his work, they could go back in time and watch that doctor in real time, and then take the knowledge and bring it back. One of the characters hates the present and is convinced that he can stay in the past, and he overdoses on the drug. Now, it should be noted that in the book, this is exactly what Bloodraven says to Bran about the weirwood net. He tells him that he's exploring the memories of the weirwood, but not the real past. And Bran is exactly like the man from For a Single Yesterday in that he believes otherwise. The second story is called Unsound Variations, written in 1982. It's about an evil chess-playing schemer, much like Doran Martell, who brings his ex-teammates together and tells them that everything that has gone wrong in their lives is because of him. He claims that he can send his consciousness back in time to his younger self and replay his life, thus changing the results. And he's been doing this to pull off the ultimate revenge on these guys. So again in this story, time travel is about sending consciousness back in time. But in this case, if the antagonist isn't lying about his abilities, the timeline can be changed. The third story is called Under Siege, written in 1985. It's about an alcoholic chess-playing dwarf living in a post-apocalyptic society who can send his consciousness back in time. But rather than sending his consciousness back to his younger self like in Unsound Variations, he can seize someone else's body, like Bran does to Hodor. Essentially, the society that the dwarf lives in is so sucky that they want to send him back to blink their society out of existence and have a better one replace it. The dwarf wants to change the world, but he's also scared of not existing, so in the end, he goes back and merges his consciousness together with his recipient, and they successfully change time and live happily ever after together. So in all 3 stories, plus A Song of Ice and Fire, time travel is about sending consciousness back. And I kind of get why our author only portrays time travel as consciousness travel. He clearly believes that consciousness is massless, and therefore wouldn't create as much of a paradox. You know, the old paradox, what if I went back in time and killed my grandfather? How would I then exist to go back in time to kill my grandfather? George R. R. Martin perceives a paradox out with consciousness travel. If I possessed Todd to kill my grandfather, and I didn't exist, Todd still killed my grandfather. The logic doesn't actually make sense, but this is the logic presented in Under Siege. So many people, including me, despise the idea of time travel being in A Song of Ice and Fire. But I can't really ignore the evidence. Bran seems to have the ability to send his consciousness back in time and affect change. And what Bran does is very similar to George R. R. Martin's previous time travel stories. This of course has big implications on the book's Theon story, who is changed by Bran's Wind Whisper. However, Theon seems to have changed in the book without Bran, so I'm not sure where they're going with the time travel plot. Nonetheless, if Bran is changing things, I think we're already observing the changed timeline, so hopefully there won't be another reset button, making all of this pointless. They were 7 against 3, or were they 6 against 2? Would you chalk up these differences to the show is not the book, or is it possible that Bloodraven is showing Bran a mummer's past? That's an intriguing possibility, but I think it's a budget and blocking thing. If you note, the first Kingsguard goes down pretty quick, so you then only have to worry about 1 action sequence. 3 simultaneous fights where we don't even know the characters in 2 of the fights would be kind of weird. I do think it was the real past. Otherwise, why block Bran from seeing inside the tower? What's the point of the Dany storyline? She already did pretty much the same deserted, humiliated, no army storyline in Season 2. Seems boring. I think some people think that she's going out to the Dothraki Sea to collect the Dothraki for an army, but that would be even more pointless as she already has an army. I truly believe that Dany has gone back to Vaes Dothrak to find out why Illyrio took Dany in and why Khal Drogo bought her. In the book, there's clearly something wrong with Dany's memories. There are no lemon trees in Braavos, and the man she remembers as Sir Willem Darry is almost certainly not Sir Willem Darry. I think at some point Dany will learn something major about her past. Maybe the Dosh Khaleen will just tell her, maybe she'll have a vision quest or a dream, or maybe it has something to do with Viserys' body, or maybe Quaithe will finally come back to the story. Do you think the birds Qyburn talked to were actual real Varys informants? I assume they were all mutes. If they were real, are they staying secretly loyal to Varys? Well, other than having tongues, we have no reason to assume that these aren't Varys' actual informants. But as we know in the book, they stay loyal to Varys. And in the book, even though Qyburn claims that he has access to Varys' network of spies, he clearly doesn't. Qyburn's plums are from Dorne. Does this finally confirm your Dorne theory? I wish. It seems the Dorne story has been largely cut from the show. There may be one last chance for a Dornish master plan, and that's with Sarella. However, I'm not really holding my breath. Was that really a fart? Well, the subtitles claim it was. What do you think about the possibility of Missandei being associated with the Harpies? I think it's highly possible. After reading a lot of George R. Martin's work, I have something that I call the Kimdis principle. Kimdis is a planet of pacifists in the Thousand Worlds. If George R. Martin writes about a pacifist, that pacifist is actually scheming to get its enemies to kill each other. In the book, Missandei comes up with a scheme to try to drive a wedge between sellswords and the city of Yunkai. She's a big schemer, and she's not to be trusted. Do you think Jaqen truly believes that Arya became no one? When Arya is giving the waif her list of names, the waif asks if she is omitting anyone. Do you think they want her so they can kill someone specific? I was actually pretty bowled over that the show had the house explicitly ask her about her death list. I had theorized in my Faceless Men series that the Faceless Men were specifically using Arya because 1, she's a telepath and can actually change her face, and 2, she has a death list that she's already willing to kill. Arya runs into a member of her list in Braavos in both book and show, and at least in the book, it has political consequences. I believe that was no accident. It seems the House of Black and White has an agenda, and Arya and her death list are tools for that agenda. I don't think Jaqen cares at all if Arya is no one or not. They know they can place Arya in certain situations, and she's going to cause chaos. Arya has shown herself to be strong and fearless, but at no point in either book or show has Arya showed herself to be not Arya. She has made no progress at becoming no one. Do you believe Shaggy Dog is dead? Do you think that Rickon will be killed by Ramsay so his story can be cut from the show and give Jon Snow a reason to go to war with him? Well, for what it's worth, the actor that plays Rickon said Shaggy Dog is dead. And the plot leaks regarding the North have been fairly accurate so far. There is a very good chance that Rickon is a goner. That said, they made Small Jon so damn likable, and there's clearly a Manderly Umber conspiracy in the book. By the way, I generally don't use the term Grand Northern Conspiracy because no one really knows what that means. So there's a general feeling that the Umbers are hiding something. But then again, so far things have been going pretty well for the good guys, and they likely deserve some setbacks. I'm pretty perplexed by this plotline. I don't know what's coming next because no one's acting rational. So what exactly are your feelings for Olly? I think everyone got a little annoyed at Olly, but I don't actually think it was the actor's fault. His feelings of resentment and anger were so heavy-handed. We all knew the betrayal was coming. I think that was more annoying than Olly. They didn't give Olly anything to do except sit around and brood. It's absolutely baffling that Sam and Jon could have missed this. His death, much like Joffrey's, was done really well. I felt really guilty after seeing Olly die. He didn't deserve to die. Jon shouldn't have killed him. This walking corpse that we think is Jon is a villain. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks again to everyone for all of the support yesterday. I hit a pretty big milestone today, 100,000 subscribers. I'll do something special for that next week, so keep an eye out for it. And I'll see you guys in a few days for Season 6 Watch, Episode 4.